This is a workshop for board members to be able to bring forward possible resolutions that they would like to see some movement on. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to open it up with whatever board members may have resolutions. And then what we'll do is we'll try to get copies of those resolutions made, take some time to review them, and then discuss them. Does that sound good with the board? Okay. Trustee Clark, do you have any resolutions you'd like to bring forward? Okay. Do you have it to where you could email it to Ms. Erickson? Tina. Okay. If you will do that, she will print them for us. Trustee Stevens? Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Has that changed since then, or would you
Yeah,
consider
this is
your
best.
copy the most? Okay.
Passable.
So, Mayor Pro Tem, did you have anything?
I don't have any additional resolutions, but I'm aware of what has been passed around.
Trustee LeKind?
I do not have any resolutions, and I have not seen what is being passed around.
Okay. Trustee Shaning? You have ones we're talking about in digital, or at least one of them in digital form?
Yes, Mayor Wilson, I just sent both of those to you in email.
Okay. And Trustee Romanello?
I have nothing else.
Okay. At this time, we'll try to get those to town staff and okay. And then we're still looking one from Trustee Clark, the most recent. Let's see. Okay, Ms. Erickson, I have forwarded the ones that have been forwarded to me. If you would please print what you have, enough copies for the board and some extra copies. Okay, let's wait till we get them and then we'll. So at this point, we'll just take 5-minute recess or however long until we are all able to get copies of what's being passed around.
I know she.
I'm trying to.
Oh.
Okay. Before us, we have two resolutions in regards to COVID mandates and COVID mandates, vaccine passports. Um, is one of these a newer version of the other? Or are these two different versions altogether?
It looks like mine, which is the shorter one, some of it has been included on, the second one.
That's correct.
Okay.
No, this one is mine.
Okay. At this time, I would like the board to take a few minutes to read over both of them, and then we will discuss them together. Okay, let's go ahead and open it up to discussion. Is there anybody who would like to start? Trustee Clark? It's not the dot, it's where it says push.
Thanks.
Okay.
Small print. I really like both. I really like both of these. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I really like both of these resolutions, but I'm having a difficulty with several things in both of them. They just recently started on the moronic virus, and I know I'm saying that wrong on purpose to get a laugh. But there's going to be a lot more viruses, from what I understand. I went through and read the WHO data that's come out recently, and the United Nations, which is what Governor Polis is implementing, since he's given our sovereignty over to those foreign entities. So we are going to have a lot of these viruses coming up, and they're going to be very specific, just like this one has a specific name and specific symptoms and specific requirements and guidelines to control our future health choices. And I think really operating underneath the basis of emphasizing our future health choices. I have a right to decide whether I want to take a vaccine or not take a vaccine. I don't have the right to impose on Trustee Stevens that he should take it or not. I have no right to choose to do that to anybody, and I don't believe that we are currently under a republic form of governance. So I don't believe even the President of the United States has the right to do that. So these things that are coming down are unconstitutional, illegal, and egregious, and they're not going to stop. So on the resolution that I brought forward, there's just a few clauses in there that I would like to see included in these. I wanted to leave it open-ended for the whole board to give their input and increase or decrease or object or agree with it, but mine clauses are supposed to be here soon. I don't know what happened to them. Did we get the
We
resolution?
we're addressing
Oh,
per topic at a time.
sorry. I'm sorry. So
No, they're not. And
my point is that we need a broader brush on this to eliminate maybe the word COVID, but say all mandatory health orders that violate our constitutional rights as deemed by a constitutional attorney, to help us to not be here every other weekend doing another one of these resolutions.
okay.
Go ahead. Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Trustee Stevens?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I think you sent me an email saying about, WHO and other organizations that are trying to control. So I don't think there would be an issue with adding those kinds of things. My main concern at first is the idea of the sanctuary status here. I don't think it is appropriate for us to try to declare a sanctuary town out of Monument. I think it's more important to say we're going to oppose mandates and passports and, specifically deal with those. I think there's several reasons why a sanctuary town concept is wrong for us. First of all, we know there's a double standard. If you are a parent whose child has been raped in school in Virginia, then you are a domestic terrorist. But if you want to burn down the town of Minneapolis and kill people while you're at it, well, you're just protesting. So there's clearly a double standard here. And so let's not be fooled into thinking that if we communicate that we are protected, we won't be, because they can come after us. And the other issue I have with the sanctuary status is the idea is lawlessness, to combat lawlessness results in anarchy. And I don't think we should declare ourselves to be basically sanctuary. The Denver started, and I remember a year ago, I threw that out in a meeting, let's do sanctuary status. But after I thought about it more, I realized I don't think it's appropriate for us to say, no, we're not going to do whatever, we're going to, sanctuary status almost means that we're free from the law. At least that's my interpretation. Now, complying with the Constitution, both of Colorado, and I have no issue with that, that we are here to comply. And we don't have to, and I think this is what we need to stress, is we should not be obeying unlawful orders. And I think the onus needs to be on indicating that an unlawful order that is in violation of our Constitution, rather than us being the ones that is being unlawful. And finally, the communist playbook is to create as much anarchy as you possibly can, and then that makes room for military or what do they call it, martial law. So I don't want to do anything to move in that direction. I think we should address issues that are unconstitutional as such. It's not us that's going to violate or are taking license to violate the rules. It is, the governor and the health department and stuff like that. So I think that's my main concern on the sanctuary status.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott.
I agree with obviously doing what we can to promote our constitutional rights and maintain them. I do have an aversion to labeling this town a sanctuary town. And I do agree with a broader resolution. You're right. No telling what's coming down the pike next. And taking specific COVID verbiage and whatever the next virus is, which I can't pronounce either, because I'm not really paying attention to it. Anyway, I'd like to see us have choice, maintain choice, because there are people in this town that really advocate. I don't know any, but I'm assuming that really advocate and push for vaccine, and that's their choice. And then they're on the other side of the fence. They don't push for vaccine. They say, no, I don't trust it. There's not enough data. It's emergency use. There's no data for children. There's no data for babies. There's no data for pregnant women. There's no data for 60 years and older. There's no data for every population that they are pushing this for, long-term data. And so I believe that the people that don't want the vaccine should have a choice, which is what you two are saying. But make sure that we cover more than just COVID. And have it be very clear and allow for the different exemptions that exist. And legally, I don't know all of those. I know there's a religious exemption. There are other exemptions. So we should be able to allow for those, if indeed paperwork is required in order to exercise our constitutional rights.
I had several legal questions on both of these proposed resolutions, but I'm going to hold those questions because I do agree with Trustee Clark on that maybe we should have a more generic resolution involving personal choice in your healthcare and your health choices. And I also agree with Trustee Stevens on we don't want to, I don't feel we want to get into the sanctuary status game. So as far as my legal questions, I will hold off on those to see what direction we're going, and because those questions might not even relate to what we end up putting together. Trustee LeKind.
Okay, so first I agree with Trustee Clark and Trustee Stevens on the how this would be formatted and remove the sanctuary status. I do have questions as to if there's been any research done as to whether pharmaceutical companies that have manufactured any form of vaccination in the past were protected from liability. So we could look back to even recent ones such as shingles and chickenpox and things of that nature. If there's a precedent set that these pharmaceutical companies are protected from liability, I see no reason why we would include that whereas statement. I think it's probably business as usual for them to be protected when they come out with a new vaccination. I do have a question on the next section where it says federal law requires the EUA product recipients be informed. I would like it called out what that law is versus just blatantly saying there's a federal law. I'd like to know what law it is.
No,
I'm on,
that's-
sorry, I'm on the longer resolution, almost towards the bottom. Sorry, trustee Clark, front page. Where it says, whereas federal law requires that EUA product recipients be informed. So I'd like to know what federal law that is. I think whoever drafted this should look it up. The other thing would be related to the mandates being unconstitutional. And I'm playing devil's advocate here. I don't agree with the mandates, but the mandates have been going through the court systems and I believe are unsettled. And since nobody up here is a constitutional attorney, nor are they a constitutional judge, they don't know if it's constitutional yet or not. And I think that we should avoid language to state something is in fact unconstitutional until the courts have settled the cases going through. We've seen them be pushed against the mandates that have been set. We've seen some of the mandates set back as it pertains to the president's mandate. We now saw a mandate that came through today from the mayor of New York City, which I believe is far overreaching from his position that he's walking away from in a few days, but it is not settled case law, and we should not be insinuating that it is. Okay, and that's all and then further up, I believe we should be removing two statements in here. One, we are a nonpartisan board. We should not be accusing government entities of bias. So the word liberal should be removed, not because I have a problem with going against liberals or Republicans, but because if this is truly a government overreach, it should not matter which way the government is leaning. 1, 2, 3, fourth paragraph down from the top. It says liberal government. And then 2 paragraphs down from that, accusing the El Paso County Health Department of being a political farce rather than a public health agency. I think that it to me, it's not logical to call them out. We are making statements against the Department of Health anyway. There's no reason to get nasty about it. And that's my 6 cents. 8 cents.
Okay, trustee Shaning.
Well, this has worked out conveniently because I feel like as we've gone down the line, the comments have sort of built upon each other. And I don't really have, I guess I agree with all of you, except on one thing. So I agree with trustee Clark. We should just broaden this whole thing. And then, trustee Stevens brought up, some very valid points. And I think that his idea of striking the sanctuary status, I would like to get the attorneys in. I guess where I'm going with this is I also agree with you, trustee LaKind. I think we should strike the word liberal out and then take out the El Paso County Health Clause, make this just really broad. And so we also need to remove anything or at least change whichever way we go, the EUA, because one of the vaccines is FDA approved now. So, but if we become more general, like trustee Clark is suggesting, all that becomes a moot point anyways. So we can just get rid of all that. I would like to, assuming we broaden all of this, strike everything out about COVID, FDA approval, EUA approval. I would like to know if our attorney thinks that there is additional legal liability or that this is some type of anarchic state by saying the word sanctuary, because in my research, which done some on this subject, it doesn't subject us to any additional liability. It simply means that we won't cooperate with the federal government on certain issues. So to me, using the word sanctuary means 100%. We are doing what we say we're going to do. We are sticking by the Constitution as we swore to do. And we're doing that 100%. So I would like to actually explore if the true meaning of sanctuary, because my understanding is not the understanding that some of the other trustees seem to have. And I feel like if we broaden it, using the word sanctuary could make more sense here.
Okay. Just a point of clarification, I would like us to get through our discussion first, kind of come to a consensus on a direction, and then we'll get feedback from the attorney on that direction. What I'd like to avoid is throwing out a bunch of questions that in the end don't apply to anything we're doing. So,
After we do the discussion.
Trustee Romanello.
I would like the attorney's feedback, so let's just go there.
Okay, go where? On
Actually,
that if we're not going to use this and we're going to write a new resolution
Okay.
broadening, would it make sense to have the attorney's feedback on something we're not going to?
well, I understand what you guys are saying, and I agree with it. And I would like to broaden it so that it encompasses everything. And I know we're looking for a no max, no vax thing, but the minutia we have to have the attorney's feedback on.
Okay. Trustee Clark, did you want to respond on some items?
Well, these were great. This was great feedback. I really appreciate everyone's comments. I would like to address a couple from Trustee LaKine first. Several court cases have been settled already and have deemed these mandates and such regarding COVID as unconstitutional on a federal level, state level, and local level courts so far. Just today, I read about 3 or 4 more, and I'll be happy to send you all of them if you want through email when I have actual access to it. I don't right now. Also, so I just want you to know that it is on a federal level being deemed unconstitutional, and they are telling governors to walk it back. And so I think that would be reassuring for you to know that. And then I too would like the attorney's feedback. And if necessary, let's consider bringing in a constitutional attorney for feedback if we need that. I agree with the sanctuary city status comment from Trustee Schoenig, and I think that there is a different verbiage that's understood now in this part of history that we're in versus past history. The past history is always a good teacher, and I always agree with keeping those concepts of communism and fascism and tyranny out of America. I am a firm believer in the Constitution. I am a constitutional conservative, and I do not want communism coming in on any level. I would just want to really make that very clear. And I really appreciate your comments, Trustee Stevens, on those. That was just great that you brought that up. So we don't want to give that wrong assumption, but with the younger people today, when you say the word sanctuary, they think that's someplace I can run and be protected in. And so I'd really like the attorney's input on that for sure. What else? I think I can't remember what else, but that's my input for everyone's comments. And I thank you for taking a look at everything and us being able to do this, because I think it's important. Oh, I know what I was going to ask Mayor Wilson. Do you remember, Mayor Wilson, when we were doing the red flag sanctuary thing? Do you remember that resolution?
We ended up doing a proclamation against the red flag bill.
Okay, so there was no sanctuary word in there?
No.
Okay, thank you. I
It was
appreciate that
discussed as
clarification.
one, and I think we nixed it at that time too.
Okay, because we do have to remember we're statutory for the time being. Right, okay. Um, So, and that could be a problematic as well, because we are statutory using that sanctuary word. So that's why we need the input of the attorney, I believe, too. Thank you.
Okay. We'll get to other comments. I just want to put out there, in the interest of time, we may not get to our other resolutions this evening. I would like to be done at least 5 minutes before the half hour so we can have a restroom break, or before the bottom of the hour so that we could have a restroom break. So, but to continue this discussion, are there other board members that have further comment on this at this time?
I just want to reiterate that I don't believe that any case law has been settled to our attorney directly. Has anything gone beyond an appellate court and has settled mandates as unconstitutional as of your knowledge? I mean, I know there's passing through various levels of courts, but they're going to go through appeals processes as each side wins or loses. So SCOTUS has made some statements about this, but is mandates deemed at the U.S. level from SCOTUS constitutional or unconstitutional?
I have no idea. I'm not a constitutional attorney. I'm a local government attorney, and I'm going to be able to advise you about local government issues. What I can tell you though is, and I think this has been hinted at, and I think I'll state it: you are on your most firm ground, your most stable ground, when you're making policy declarations. So you can say things like, "We believe it to be unconstitutional," or "It is our position that it is unconstitutional." Things like that. And that is a policy position taken by a board in the form of a resolution, and you have the most broad authority to do that, because it is exactly that, a resolution espousing a political position. To the extent, though, that you do have some guardrails in terms of your limitations, and one of them has been noted is your limitation as a statutory town. So as a statutory town presently, there has to be a basis for a statutory power. You have to find it in the Colorado Revised Statutes, a basis to do acts. And to the extent that there is no such basis, you are precluded from doing that. And then I think that that's one piece. And then, so I guess I'll leave it at that. I don't want to go on, but generally speaking, the most firm ground you have is making a broad policy position. And you can certainly take that and espouse that, but keeping it in terms of a policy position keeps you the safest.
Well, and I think we have to ask ourselves, to what end would we consider something to be deemed unconstitutional by the courts? I mean, if this has gone through federal courts, district courts, at what point do we in our minds say, okay, several judges have called this unconstitutional, until it goes to the Supreme Court, which, let's face it, could be years. To what end? So that's where there are bills and laws made every day, and people do use that verbiage in the way that, I mean, so I don't know. I don't think it puts any added liability on us, but I'm okay with it being.
And the Constitution
down.
gave local government the most power intentionally.
From my perspective, I don't disagree with the unconstitutionality, but we're not SCOTUS. And so we're not going to resolve constitutional issues here in this board. My main concern for drafting the resolution is, number one, to make sure that people know. Now, recently, one of the vaccines has been officially approved by the FDA, but people need to understand that they are all there, except for that one, they're under emergency use. And as emergency use by law, and I apologize for not citing but by law, you have to waive your, if you go in a hospital and you do an emergency use, drug or whatever, you have to sign a paper saying that you're releasing that. And so in the end, at And be it resolved, I'm encouraging citizens not to sign any liability releases, because that's exactly what they want you to do, is to get the vaccine and say, well, sorry for the bad results, but you didn't, you waived your rights. So my main purpose is to let people be aware that many of the vaccines are still under emergency use authorization status, and that they don't have to waive their rights, even if they're being mandated by the employer. And also to bring the attention that the employers, I think Trump, when he hurried through the vaccine and got that going, he made a waiver for this vaccine. However, the waiver was for the pharmaceutical companies. The waiver was not for businesses. So that means that if a business mandates a vaccine and something bad happens to their employees or one or more employees, there could be liability on behalf. And I think that's my concern at the local level, is that our businesses are made aware that they can have liability issues as far as when it comes to mandating it, and that our citizens are aware that if it's emergency use authorization, they do have the right to they don't have to waive their liability. I mean, if they say, okay, I want my job and I can't give up my job, so I'll go get vaccinated, they should certainly not sign the waiver. And if they don't sign the waiver, then they can say, well, here is bad things happening to me, but you mandated me, and then they can take action that would at least compensate them for their, civilly. So that's my concern. That's kind of where I'm coming from as far as this resolution is pertaining.
Any other comments? Okay, I think what I'd like to suggest is that I think there was a complete consensus on broadening it to individual health choices. Is the board in agreement with that? So I think at this time, we take this back and we will work on another one. And I would like to see if the board is open to another one of these hour workshops prior to the next meeting. And maybe we do 2 or 3, 4 of those until we get through all the resolutions we'd like to see put out there.
Yes.
Okay. So any final comments before we do that? Everybody's in agreement? Okay, at this point, we will recess until our regularly scheduled meeting.
Gonna go fast.
I call to order this special meeting of the Monument Board of Trustees, Tuesday, December 7th, 2021. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. That sounded really good. Ms. Hogan, will you take roll, please?
Ms. Erickson,
Or, I'm sorry.
thank you.
Thank you. My apologies. Ms. Erickson, will you take roll, please?
Mayor Wilson,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Here.
Trustee Clark,
Here.
Trustee LaKind,
Here.
Trustee Romanello,
Here.
Trustee Shaning,
Here.
Trustee Stevens.
Here.
Okay, since this is a special meeting, there is no consent agenda because we are limited to only the items on the agenda, but we do have item 3, which is approval of the previous minutes. Is there any questions or changes for the previous meeting minutes, or a motion to approve the previous meeting minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Ms. Erickson, will you take roll real quick?
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Trustee Shaning,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee LaKine,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee Romanella,
Yes.
Okay, those minutes are approved. Item 4A, ordinance number 30, 2021, restate of the budget. Ms. Fox. Ms. Fox, am I to understand that you will be covering A and B in one presentation?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. I'd like to remind the board members, we will have to vote on those separately, but we will be covering them at one time. Mr. Rivera, am I correct in thinking that we can hold, as we did before, previously, I believe we held one open public hearing to comment on both items?
I believe that's fine.
Ms. Fox, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, good evening, Board of Trustees, Mayor Wilson, residents, and staff. For the record, this is Teresa Fox, Finance Director for the Town of Monument. In the past few weeks, since I've joined the Town of Monument, I've done my best to familiarize myself as much as possible with the budget process and its revenues with various funding sources and operating and capital expenditures. We realized there was some confusion earlier that needs clarification. With multiple staff working on these documents to get them ready for you all, we had a miscommunication, which resulted in providing a correction to the initial package you received. So that's why you had another email. We have implemented corrective measures in our budget process to mitigate this occurrence for the next budget season. So what I'd like to do now is to move forward and look at, we're here this evening to look at for your approval, the 2021 restated budget, the 2022 final budget, and certification of levy of the 2022 mill levy, which is reduced by 0.402 from what it was originally. So this is exciting news. And we're presenting all of this evening in order to comply with state statutes and requirements. So we're going to start with the restatement of 2021 budget, which captures changes not previously identified or known in the initial budget approved in December of 2020. On November 15th, the board reviewed this restated budget. Additional information was requested related to the Water Enterprise Fund, which showed a negative fund balance at that time. There were several options to present this data. We have a slide for you today with the correct information for this restatement, which appropriately reflects the actual accounting for this fund. And as you can see, relative to this information, all other items remain the same in the restatement. The Water Enterprise Fund, we were showing you where that beginning fund balance is because initially the 22 million is a restricted use on eligible COP water projects and not for use with all expenses within this fund. This provides an explanation as to why it was not included in the original approved 21 budget. It is a restricted fund use. So as we move forward, we look at our memorandum, the restatement, the key highlights, general fund. We updated net change of about 148,000. It adds ARPA funding, admin payouts, different things like that. We have your planning fees, capital projects, 2A water fund, the park fee, conservation trust, and your COP projects at about 5.12 million for 2021. And as I mentioned, that is where we're looking at right now. So are there any questions?
Questions from the board. Trustee Stevens, Trustee Clark, does that answer your question from the previous 2021 budget restatement meeting.
Yes, it does for me. Thank you for your comments.
It does answer that question. I appreciate your assistance with that. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Ms. Fox?
Thank you. Well, that being said then, staff has submitted ordinance 38-2021 and ordinance 39-2021 to request the Board of Trustees approve the 2021 stated budget. So staff formally requests the board approval of ordinance 38-2021 based on the summary submitted to the Board of Trustee. This ordinance provides the current and expected fund balances for each fund, as well as projected revenues and expenses through December 31st, 2021. Next, we have.
Go ahead.
And staff formally requests the board approve ordinance 39-2021 as presented, which appropriates the expenses approved to the funds that it will be paid from, and then respectively request approval of adopting the 2021 restated budget as presented to the Board of Trustees.
Okay, so this is for the restate of the 2020 budget to include funds that we did not budget for originally. Questions from the board before we open up the public hearing portion of this item? Okay, if there are no comments from the board at this time, I'll open it up. I'll open the public hearing for ordinance number 38-2021 and 39-2021, both items relating to the restate of the 2021 budget. Would anybody from the public like to speak on those items? Mr. Anderson, do we have anybody online at this time that would like to speak on those items? Okay.
I wish to move to approve ordinance number 38.
second.
Oh, sorry.
At this time, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing portion and bring it back to the board for a vote. Please remember, board members, we need to vote on these individually.
I will move to approve ordinance number 38-2021, an ordinance adopting a restated budget for the purposes set forth below for the town of Monument, Colorado, beginning on the first day of January 2021 and ending on the last day of December 2021.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Erickson, will you take roll on ordinance number 38-2021?
Trustee Shaning,
Yes.
Trustee LaKind,
Yes.
Trustee Romanella,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson.
Yes. That motion passes 6-1. That takes us on to the second half of the ordinance, or the other ordinance, ordinance number 39-2021. Do we have any questions, comments, or a motion from the board?
Make a motion to approve ordinance 39-2021, an ordinance appropriating sums of money to the various funds and the amounts set forth below for the town of Monument, Colorado, beginning on the first day of January 2021 and ending on the last day of December 2021.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Ms. Erickson, will you take roll, please?
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee LaKind,
Yeah. Yes.
Trustee Shaning,
Yes.
Trustee Romanella,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
No.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson.
Yes. That ordinance passes 6-1. Moving on, ordinance number 40-2021. Ms. Fox, ordinance 2021, you are also going to cover ordinance 41-2021 and resolution 66-2021. Okay. Okay. So we are covering 40 and 41. Go ahead, Ms. Fox.
Push a button, don't I? I apologize for that. Next order of business, the 2022 budget. This evening, staff is presenting the final 2022 budget and request for board approval. This was created as a sustainable and balanced budget in accordance with the applicable Colorado state statutes and the town of Monument policies. This budget is the town's financial plan and used as a tool and guide for operations for the period from January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2022. And this impacts all town departments, offices, and ensures they have the resources to service our residents. And with that being said, we have a brief overview of what is in the budget itself, so you kind of get an idea as we move forward. So starting in the beginning, we have the 2022 town manager's budget. This information is the expenditure budget appropriation. It also ties to the ordinances and is reflected in them for comparison if you would like to review that. And as you can see, we have all of our various funds, general fund, capital projects. So general fund is 7.9, capital projects 3.2, the police 2F fund, which is a new fund, 4.2, the 2A water fund, community development, and you can go through and read this for a total operating budget of $39,405,900. The 2022 budget highlights there were several factors that contributed to the formulation of this proposed budget. The ballot 2F, voter approved for the police fund, which we have gone ahead, and what we have here is transferring. Not only are we looking at the 2F funds, but we also are transferring 2.6 million from the general fund in addition in order to support our police. Next, we also have the ARPA, which is the American Rescue Plan Act. So we do have available to use in 2022, 2.2 million. Call your attention to the general fund balance. And this is also have identified page numbers so that if you were to reflect back to your budget packet, you'll see that that page aligns with the slides so that you can have more detail should you choose to look at that at this point. So on page, it's located on page 3, but the current 2022 year-end anticipated fund balance is $1,128,999, which is at 14.13% of fund balance reserve percent. So this brings, I'd like to bring your attention to this because it is projected, the fund balance is projected to be within 0.87% of the town manager's goal of 15%. And we'd like to share that with you. And this is also after we've incorporated the 3% taper requirement set aside. So when we looked at it, we identified the reasons for the fund balance change. Well, over 2021, sales tax projections are updated, and we did come in higher than what we had originally anticipated. Updated with the board-approved merit rate COLA increase to 10%. We also had health insurance renewal came in at 1.1% instead of the initial 15%. That was in the initial presentation. And then also the retirement expense increase was 11% rather than 5%. So we're still looking at, you know, a positive percentages here. Revenues, they begin on page 7 in the actual budget. Sales tax, the assumption is a 6% increase over 2021. It's a conservative estimate. Tobacco tax anticipated a small increase of 3%. We anticipate intergovernmental revenues and planning revenues to remain stable for 2022. And we anticipate revenue increases in 2022 due to increase in post-pandemic business activity. And, you know, looking at various resources and publications and surveys, online retail and virtual, we're starting to see, you know, some of our small businesses coming back. So we're hoping for that to continue. Various sources of revenues as we continue. Well, we have the general fund with an increase of about 6% over 2021. And what we have here is that per our IGA, we do 50% of all sales and use tax collected on Triview properties is allocated to Triview. A third of sales tax revenue, 1%, is collected and transferred to the 2A Water Fund. And this is restricted money for new water projects. And then in the water fund distribution, we have an amount equal to 9.5% of the water revenue is also allocated to the water fund, so that you have a breakdown of some of the allocations for our sources of revenue. We have other sources: property taxes, planning fees and permits, franchise fees, other taxes, use taxes, HUTF, business licenses, water impact fees, and water sales, which go to the water fund. So just kind of a general overview of the various revenue sources that we're working with. On our expenditure update, as mentioned, 2022 benefits. Well, medical, we are renewing with Kaiser. We had a nominal increase of 1.1% to annual premiums. Dental and vision, we do have a rate lock on that in 2022, so there's no premium increase. The employee COLA, which you all had reviewed, there was 2% COLA with an additional 8% for merit for a total of 10%. And then the retirement contributions are currently in 2022 budgeted at up to 11% town match. For our capital project fund, beginning on page 23, they, as a reminder, must be used exclusively for street and road maintenance, construction, and capital improvements, including the acquisition of rights of way within the town limits. Estimating revenues 2022 to be more than that of 2021. In addition, we have grant funds applied, $1,932,600 towards Jackson Creek Parkway expansion, and a CDBG grant of $243,000 for planned sidewalks. So we have various projects scheduled for 2022, as you can see. Curb and gutter at $350,000, sidewalks, mentioned the $243,000, general repair and maintenance, asphalt repair of streets, and $350,000, and the Jackson Creek Parkway at $3.2 million. The 2F Police Fund, we anticipate revenue from sales tax of $1.6 million, and we are transferring from the general fund $2.6 million annually so that we support our police. And the expenses are projected at $4.3 million. Wanted to list here because we did mention on new hires for our PD. We look at the new hire academy training, non-capital equipment, radios, tasers, rifles. These are one-time purchases when we bring someone on board, and wanted to list some of those items so that you have a general idea of those kind of expenditures. The 2A Water Fund. There's a fund balance of $4.2 million projected. The planned expenses in 2022 are comprised of $250,000 for 259 Beacon Light Road for the building to finish improvements for occupancy. And there's a $1.2 million transfer out for water COP annual payment on that $22 million bond. So that is relative to the 2A Water Fund. We have community development. Business license revenues are anticipated to be consistent with 2021. We did add for an administrative assistant for community development, and the general fund does support with $63,000 transfer to supplement revenue to cover expenses for this fund so that we remain in balance. Traffic impact fee, $100,000 budgeted for expenses, and this particular fund is anticipated to be used for small projects or to help with road striping. If it's unspent, those funds will revert to that fund balance available for later projects or larger projects. Stormwater drainage, very similar, $100,000 budgeted for expenses. Again, only to be used for small projects that come up unexpectedly. And if it's not needed, the money will revert to that fund balance to save up for larger projects in the future. The Water Enterprise Fund, in 2022, the ending fund balance projected at 6.6 million. It reflects the COP project activity, and there is a transfer from 2A Water Fund to the Enterprise Fund for annual debt payment of that 1.27. So cross-referencing so that you know where the ins and outs are. Park fees, land use permits, fees in lieu of park land. The projected revenue is 40,000. And the Conservation Trust Fund. Revenues over the last years have been steady. 40,000 budgeted for parks and open space and used to each year to plant flowers and annual landscaping in our town parks. And 20,000 is budgeted to transfer to the general fund to pay a portion of the gardener's salary. And that is just a brief overview of the full 2022 budget that has been presented. Are there any questions?
Questions from the board? Trustee Clark?
This is a beautiful presentation. Thank you so much. I was wondering, is this 1,650,000 transferring from the general fund into the PD an estimation of what you think will be the total commercial sales tax revenues portion for the PD? Is that just an estimate?
Currently, yes, that is an estimate.
And what will happen if it is over that?
So if it's over that, it will still go to the 2F fund. So any sales tax generated by the 2F law will go to the 2F fund, go to the police fund.
Okay, great.
Yep.
So,
And we'll continue annually transferring $2.6 million out of the general fund to the police fund in addition to the 2F funds that are generated.
well, I think that's very admirable, and I really appreciate your explanation, Mr. Foreman. I'm very happy with these amounts.
You bet.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board?
I have a question. It might be for Mr. Foreman. I'm curious as to the increase in health insurance renewal was projected to be 15%, but good news was it was only 1.1%. Why the discrepancy?
You know, every year we budget that it's going to increase. We're waiting for that huge increase. It hasn't hit us the last 2 years. Last year, we were less than 1%, I believe. And so just to be, looking out for the future, as you know, health expenses have gone up over the last 10 years. We expect those to increase one year. We've been really fortunate to be able to negotiate with our health care providers, and we got a really great rate this year.
Okay, if there are no other questions at this time from the board, I will open up the public hearing portion of these two items. Anyone who would like to speak on ordinance number 40, 2021, or ordinance number 41, 2021. Mr. Rathburn.
My name's Ron Rathburn. I want to represent my guys. I know 10% is a lot, but I want to let you know that these are the best crew I've had since I've been 35 years. I started my 36. As you recall, when I received my recognition for my 35 years, I admitted that I prayed for good help for all the years that I've worked here. And I'll have to say that these guys are the best crew I've had, and that as the chief will concur that when something needs done, somebody asks something that needs done, we get on it, we get it done. We do a good job. A lot of my guys are young. They're at the point in their lives where they've either bought a house or they're wanting to buy a house. They're wanting to get married and start a family. And this 10%
is going to be a kickstart for that. I don't know if it's going to be enough the way things are going now in this economy, but it'll definitely be help. So I thank you for your observation in this and I'm very much thankful.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here tonight that would like to speak? Mr. Anderson, do we have anyone online that would like to speak on these two items? Okay. Then at this point, I will close the public comment portion and bring it back to the board for further discussion. Mr. Foreman,
Yes, sir.
unreserved fund balance, we're at 14.3%. Your goal was 15%,
Yes, sir. We're at 14.13%.
or excuse me, 14.13. Where were we 2 years ago?
Almost zero.
Okay.
Just barely above.
I believe that we have. I believe that your goal is 15%, correct?
Yes, sir.
And what's the average or the?
The requirement from or the recommendation from GFOA is 15%.
Okay.
You know, at most towns that I've worked at, we've set a goal of about 25%, but where we're at in our lifetime here in the town of Monument, 15% is enough today. With growth and sales tax increase and stuff like that going forward, we probably can be able to reach the 25% that I would love to be at in 2 to 3 more years. But we've got a lot of projects to do. We've got a lot of employees to hire and stuff like that. And so it's a balance of where we want to have our reserve percentage, but also what projects you want to do and how we want to serve our community.
Well, you've done an excellent job. I would love to see this continue, and not only continue for the general fund, but each individual department having their own reserves. And I know you and I have discussed that before, and it is a goal, whether it be a long-term goal or we get there sooner than we expect, like we have done with this.
Definitely.
Other comments from the board?
Yes, I would like to say that I wanted to say it last meeting. The showing of the staff and the police and your commitment to wanting to see what we're going to do weighed very heavy on my heart in a good way. And instead of having a board that looks for what's wrong, instead of look for what's right, is a big deal. And I appreciate you all so much. And as long as you have this board here, I don't know what's going to happen in the future. We appreciate you and appreciate all your service. And I want to thank you. And we believe in you and we support you. That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Any other trustee clerk?
I would like to also thank you guys. You have been tremendous in everything you've done. And so I fully support the police department and the public works and the administration in this town. You all have done a fabulous job. And look where we've gotten in just 2 years. Thank you, Mr. Foreman, for your management and your oversight to make that happen. I really appreciate everybody's effort. Thank you.
Thank you.
It certainly wasn't that way 4 years ago. That's all I got to say about that.
Okay, do we have a motion for ordinance number 40, 2021?
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance number 40-2021, an ordinance adopting a budget for the purposes set forth below for the town of Monument, Colorado, beginning on the first day of January 2022 and ending on the last day of December 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Erickson?
Trustee Shaning,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Trustee Romanello,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes,
Trustee LaKind.
Yes.
that motion passes 7-0. Ordinance number Ordinance number 41, 2021. The sums of money. Do we have a motion for that?
I make a motion to pass ordinance number 41-2021, an ordinance appropriating sums of money to the various funds in the amounts set forth below for the town of Monument, Colorado, beginning on the first day of January 2022 and ending on the last day of December 2022.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Erickson?
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Trustee LaKind,
Yes.
Trustee Shaning,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Trustee Romanella.
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. That takes us to item 5, resolutions. Resolution number 66, 2021, authorizing the certification of property tax mill levy. Ms. Fox.
Yes, thank you. Set before you is the resolution to authorize the certification of the property tax mill levy for the budget year 2022. The Division of Local Government, as well as myself, have referred and reviewed the information. And then we confirmed, we received data from El Paso County for this authorization. It is lower by 0.402 mils as below 2021, which was 6152, and 2022 is 5.75, if you're looking at it from that perspective as far as percentages. So staff respectfully requests that the Board of Trustees approve resolution number 66-2021, authorizing the certification of the mill levy.
Can you repeat what that went down? It was 6.15.
Let me, I've got a statement on that, so let me tell you that. Just think what you just did. You just passed a budget to where we're giving the employees a 10% raise. We're increasing retirement. We're increasing how we're going to police this town. And at the same time, we're lowering the mill levy on our citizens from 6.152 to 5.75. So that's how our town is growing. That's how our town, I think people are shopping locally more. They're shopping on the internet more, and we're seeing a lot better revenue stream. And based on state law, we're able to lower the mill levy from 6.152 to 5.75.
I think it has to do a lot more than shopping, like we've discussed. It's our town staff, it's our leadership, and whether it be the police department or public works or admin staff. I don't think you get those kind of opportunities if those cogs don't work well in the wheel.
Thank you.
So, any other questions or comments from the board?
Thank you for lowering my property.
And I just want to say that too, everybody in Monument is going to be very, very, very happy about this. I think we'll be the only ones with a reduction. So that's a wonderful thing. Thank you, Mr. Foreman.
You bet.
Do we have a motion for resolution number 60-2021 or 66-2021?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 66, 2021, a resolution to authorize the certification of the property tax mill levy to the El Paso County Assessor for the budget year 2022, beginning on the first day of January 2022 and ending on the last day of December 2022.
Second.
Second.
Ms. Erickson, will you take roll? We have a motion and a second.
Which one was the second? Who called that one?
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott.
Okay. Trustee Romanella,
Yes.
Trustee Shaning,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee LaKind,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. Item number 5B, resolution 67-2021, authorizing the execution of agreement to perform all other actions necessary to join Colorado opioid settlement. Ms. Vanden Hook.
Good evening, Board. Before you, we have a resolution regarding the opioid settlement memorandum of understanding. The state of Colorado, as well as several Colorado local governments, have pursued litigation against various pharmaceutical companies for their role in causing the opioid epidemic in Colorado. The litigation recently resulted in settlements with several of these companies, resulting in up to approximately $400 million in settlement funds for both the state and local governments to abate the opioid crisis. In order to maximize these settlement funds within Colorado, all Colorado counties and municipalities need to participate in these settlement documents and the distribution process by signing the documents that are included in your board packet. Local governments and the state prepared the Colorado Memorandum of Understanding, which prioritizes regionalism, collaboration, and abatement in the sharing and distribution of opioid settlement funds. If 95% of participation from local governments is reached, there is an opportunity to receive settlement funds that can be used on opioid abatement strategies that include prevention, treatment, and harm reduction. We anticipate that the Monument Police Department will utilize these funds to provide officers training and resources in these efforts. The Colorado MOU provides the framework for fairly dividing and sharing settlement proceeds among the state and local governments in Colorado. The distribution is shared in your board packet.
Okay, questions from the board. Chief Hemingway, how do you see your team using these items or this settlement money?
So I think a lot of the unfunded mandates that came from the situation in Minneapolis, they really shifted what we're looking at in use of force. But I've been a big proponent of pushing the training of getting medical attention to somebody quicker in the state of excited delirium or in the state of an overdose. So I think the education for officers, not just looking at it from the state's perspective on how we use force, but identifying an overdose and a medical emergency quicker. I could see training in that area. And then, of course, getting back into, replenishing our Narcan, and then really getting into the schools with a, kind of like a DARE type of modified drug resistance education and an anonymous tip line. I think things along those lines would help this community.
Does Narcan, right?
Yes, sir, Narcan.
Does that expire or does it get used often?
Yeah, it does have a shelf life.
Okay.
I think up to a year or two. Really, it's replenished. I'd like to see more of it out in the community. I'd like to see it available to people other than police officers, and I think we could support programs like that.
Okay. Additional comments from the board, questions?
Is there a DARE program with D38?
Honestly, I don't know how far they delve into that. We haven't participated in that. I don't know exactly what version of DARE or what version of education the SROs are using. Some agencies went away from a full DARE program historically because of the testing requirements. I've heard a lot of principals say that they've had to remove certain elements from the schools because they're testing more and to allow other state mandated educational programs. So I could see more of a hybrid, as I talk to the sheriff's office, as I talk to the members at District 38, I see us trying to get into the schools as a partnership versus us taking over right now with programs like that, not just drugs, but also just community enhancement programs, identifying problem children in the school so that our officers on the street have that liaison. So putting maybe a part-time person in there as a neighborhood resource officer.
All right, thank you.
Trustee Shaney?
Is that, when you say that you can perhaps get an officer, you're positive that the way that you spend that money isn't heavily dictated. I looked everywhere for if there are any strings attached to this money. I just wanted to be sure. Have you seen anything like that yet?
No, I haven't in this community. As far as how typically when we get a grant such as this, there's guidelines for what the training will incorporate. And then we can take that and expand the program. So a lot of times we'll get a grant, use it based on the guidelines of the grant, but then expand the actual program that we're using that funding for. And part of the 2F funding that we already have deals with mental health, deals with drugs, deals with more proactive enforcement, but also has a component to work closer with the schools. So a hybrid, if you will.
When I looked to try to find the exact language in the memorandum, just like I said, to make sure that there aren't any strings attached that we needed to be aware of, and I couldn't find it anywhere. So I guess I just did have some question in that regard. And so I did a little bit of research, and I determined that when El Paso County Commissioners joined onto this, they also hadn't seen the memorandum yet. So I'm just wondering, where is that? Where is that?
So would I be correct in saying that it's when 95% of entities agree to join, then it's created amongst that 95%?
Well, the memorandum of understanding from the Colorado Attorney General's office is included in your board packet. It starts on page 87, I believe. $75 pages long.
What page did you say that it was on?
87.
It shows up as 85 on my packet. Or no, my mistake.
What's the dollar amount that we would be part of?
We
don't
won't
know.
know.
What does it cost? That's what I want to know also, yes.
It doesn't cost us anything, but we don't know how much we don't know how much we'll get out of it, correct?
That's correct. There is guidelines that say that you can have a 10%, you can use 10% of the funds towards administration of the fee or the grant too.
Well, I think we should participate in this.
Yes.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, what kind of an opioid issue do we have in this town? I know there was a time that they were thinking about a methadone clinic that didn't go over too well, but just out of curiosity, do we have any numbers?
So we've had some overdoses. We've had some situations where we've administered Narcan in the past 12 months specifically I'm speaking of. I was told there was an overdose about 6 months ago, but it was in the unincorporated area. A lot of times we don't actually know what they're overdosing on. You know, we'll administer Narcan or the medics will get there. And then we kind of, stabilize the situation. We send them to the hospital, and then of course HIPAA kicks in. I can tell you we're taking meth off the street. We are seeing some heroin. It's out there. I think now that our force is growing in size, the officers will have the ability to, knowing that there's more than one officer in service, sometimes they'll have the ability to do more street level enforcement. So I think you're going to see, in some cases, more crimes reported, more drug use identified. And it doesn't mean we're, becoming more unsafe as a community. It means that the reporting is becoming better and the enforcement's becoming better. And that's when you look at crime and solvability versus just crime. But we are seeing it, to answer your question. We just don't know sometimes if we get a medical call and the police officer doesn't get there before the person's transported, And then, of course, once they're at the hospital, HIPAA kicks in. But we have administered Narcan from the Monument Police Department.
Okay, if there are no other questions or comments, do we have a motion?
I make a motion to pass resolution number 67-2021, resolution authorizing the execution of all agreements and to perform all other actions necessary to join the Colorado Opioid Settlement Memorandum of Understanding.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Erickson?
Trustee Shaining,
Yes.
Trustee Romanello, Trustee LaKind,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens, Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott.
Yes.
That resolution passes 7-0. That takes us to Resolution 5C, Resolution number 68-2021, a resolution initiating the annexation and setting a date hearing for the Board of Trustees to consider enclave annexation of an area known as Triview Metro District parcels on St. Lawrence Way. Ms. Harrington.
Good evening, Mayor, trustee members. Megan Harrington, Planning Director. What I'm going to do, if it's all right with you, Mayor, is I will just give you an introduction to both resolutions 68 and 69 because they are related. They are performing that same function, which is setting the hearing to hear two separate annexations of two enclave areas. An enclave is a parcel or group of parcels that's completely surrounded by the city boundaries. Our comprehensive plan recommends cleaning these areas up. It assists with just services, and it's really not a great idea to have holes within the middle of the municipal boundaries, which is basically what an enclave is. Each of these enclaves does meet the standard. There is no requirement for a petition. The owners do not need to petition the town. However, both of these owners have agreed to annexation. Staff sent a letter, had additional communication with both property owners, and they are both in agreement with annexation. These resolutions set that hearing date for January 18th and direct staff to begin that annexation process, which is posting a notification of the hearing based on state statute.
Okay.
We will have more information for you, obviously, at the hearing in January.
Correct. So these are setting the hearing date. Questions from the board? If there are no questions, do we have a motion for 68-2021?
I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 68-2021, a resolution initiating annexation and setting a hearing date for the Board of Trustees of the Town of Monument to consider enclave annexation of an area known as Triview Metropolitan District parcels on St. Lawrence Way.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Erickson?
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Trustee Shaining,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee LaKind,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee Romanello.
Yes.
That motion passes 7-2. Do we have a motion for resolution number 69-2021?
So I make a motion for to approve resolution 69-2021, a resolution initiating annexation and setting a hearing date for the Board of Trustees for the Town of Monument to consider enclave annexation of an area known as the Trinity Lutheran Church at 17750 Knollwood Drive.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The second was Trustee LaKind.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee Romanello,
Yes.
Trustee Shaining,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee LaKind.
That motion that motion passes 7-0. That now takes us to resolution number 70-2021, a resolution approving a change order for JR Finlec. What's that? Oh, that's okay.
Just how
related to the radium project located at well 3 and 9. Mr. Tharnish.
Good evening, Mayor, Board of Trustees. Resolution in front of you tonight is to approve a change order for a couple of issues associated with the radium / building expansion project for well number 9. The first one has to do with some electrical conduit that was uncovered during excavation that was not marked and not plotted on any of our drawings. It was actually the main power line running between well number 8 and the building, and it did not match the as-built drawings from 1998 when that line was put in. It actually showed the line 15 feet to the east, and so when they hit it, they weren't expecting that, and it damaged the conduit. So we had to do a design change to get the conduit to fit. It was right underneath where one of the footers was going for the new building. And so part of this was what necessitates a change order. And the second one was we had to design a man door on the north side of the building. And once we went through some of the construction process, we came to the conclusion that for future reference, it would benefit us greatly if we replace that man door with a roll-up door. So that if we decided to add additional treatment to that plant, we would have a way to bring in these large steel vessels rather than have to take a wall out or something like that. So both those changes were well within JR Freelance's capability, and they submitted some prices. And it just so happened that this one exceeded the $25,000 signature from town manager. It was underneath the 5% trigger for change orders, but because of the 25,000, this is the first time that I've seen a change order really at this level. Most change orders are in the hundreds of thousands, and so they would automatically come to the board anyway. But this one just was a little bit over that limit, so the direction was to bring this to the board for approval.
As
Any
board,
questions?
these kind of issues when they come up and, like I said, it's a small change order, but it's over my $25,000 limit. And I feel like that it's prudent for us to bring this to the board and have you see what's going on in your community and how much it costs and have you approve these issues.
Mr. Foreman, I think that, and Mr. Tharnish also, I think that adds to our transparency. And even though it is over the $25,000, I think it was still within your percentageable amount to approve. This could have been approved internally, but thank you for bringing it to the board. Questions from the board?
You couldn't get a coupon to knock $924 and not, you couldn't negotiate $924?
Get on rebate key and see what happens. I can tell you that there's most likely one more change order coming, but they're not quite ready for that yet.
And that's the conversation that we have when we talk about change orders, is multiple change orders that come up. If we don't bring them to you when they're at this level, when do we bring them to you? When they get to $100,000 or something like that, and you go, well, why didn't you bring the first one to us? And so we wanted to make sure that you got these from the get-go.
But to your point, though, you discovered something that wasn't in the plans.
Yes.
So what are we doing proactively to assure that other secret hidden things in underneath the surface of the town streets and roads and alleyways are not hidden from the backhoe from hitting it?
Tom's got him on a sticky note.
Well,
Well,
I mean, you literally know where things are buried,
yes.
but is there some way to get that incorporated into official documentation so we're not hitting them in the future, costing us $25,000?
Well, I think part of the issue with this was when that well number 8 was built, which I believe was in 97, 98, somewhere in that area, that whoever the engineer was at the time, when they did the as-built drawings, they just didn't mark the as-built power lines in a correct
location. And again, that's way before any of us started. We have a much more robust procedures in place for documenting as-built things that go in the ground. Nowadays, we take pictures of things. We take measurements, and as they go along, they plot these on the map. So in the end, we get a final document of everything that goes in. It is first time since I've been director that we've hit something that was far off what the original drawing showed. And
There's not a lot we can do about what happened in the history, but we're making sure that people that are sitting in these seats in the future don't have the same problems that we're having today.
And I think that does have to do with going beyond as-built, because I know my experience is the as-built isn't always correct.
no, we've had some near misses, but this one was a little dangerous. Only the fact that when they hit it, we weren't at the moment, we weren't sure what it was because it was several feet away from the wellhead. And then once we started looking at it, that's when it was discovered that it was one of the power supply lines that run between well number 8 and the treatment plant. Actually, the drive unit inside the treatment plant that powers it.
Any additional questions or comments on this resolution? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion.
I move to pass Resolution 70, 2021, a resolution approving a change order to J.R. Philack for additional work needed related to the radium project located at well 3/9 water treatment facility.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Erickson, will you take roll, please?
Trustee Romanella,
Yes.
Trustee Shaning,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee LaKind,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. That takes us to item 6, public comments. Public comments for items not on the agenda. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Do we have anyone in the public that would like to make comment this evening? Mr. Anderson, do we have anyone online that would like to make comment? Miss Swearingen, is she up and ready? Okay. Miss Swearingen, if you are ready, please go ahead.
Okay, is the audio coming through?
Oh, hold on. We have a lot of echo. One moment.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, trustees. For my 3 minutes, I would like to discuss watching you in action from 5:30 to about 6:25 tonight. Was that a resolution that was trying to be passed, or what was the technical term for that?
That was just a discussion about possible resolutions.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure who wrote that thing, but I'd say they'd be hard pressed to add any more inflammatory language into that. And so I do believe that the way that was written was extremely inflammatory. And I don't think it's helpful or productive to the community as a whole to submit something written with that type of language. Also, whoever wrote that, if they've been paying attention to the news, they would understand and have heard that the governor is not considering any statewide mitigation measures, including any mask mandates. Matter of fact, he has been commenting quite frequently that he is quite supportive of local communities in recognition that in Colorado, we have a very diverse state. And so he is not promoting any type of mandates like that. So whoever wrote that should keep that in mind. He does encourage vaccinations, but he supports cities and counties in their own opinions and how they choose to react to something. As I was listening to this for 55 minutes, all I could keep thinking of was I wish that the trustees would spend as much time and effort trying to get the town of Monument a long-term, sustainable, renewable water source as you do in bringing up these types of resolutions. I also was curious as if you're seeking to expand this beyond COVID, is that going to create any type of conflict with the school districts in regards to students having to get any type of vaccines to be able to attend school? I also notice as I'm sitting here and thinking about the relief funds that you've taken and the opioid settlement that you just chose to get included on, the Board of Trustees and the Town of Monument seem fine using whatever funds that the state and federal government send out in regards to COVID or whatever. And I think that's extremely appropriate. I have nothing against you doing that. But I wonder if anybody up there thinks about the irony that your hands are out when it suits you, but you only have disparaging things to say about your state and federal governments when whatever they're trying to get across to you, you do not approve of. I honestly, I expect more from each and every one of you in regards to taking care of this community. I think those types of resolutions actually cause more harm than they help the community as a whole. And that's all I had to say. I wish you all a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Anderson, do we have anyone else online that would like to make comment? Okay. At this time, we'll.
Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to make a statement.
For public comments?
Yes.
Okay.
That'll go. Thanks. Efficient budgeting is based on two main ingredients: effective financial trend analysis and reliable revenue forecasting. The town budget has traditionally taken a conservative approach to the utilization of both of these tools. Preparing the 2022 budget presented some significant financial opportunities for the growth of the town staff, and of projects that it can be completed in 2022. 2021 saw increasing revenues, increased expenses, and significant changes to operational functions. The 2022 budget addresses these challenges while maintaining the town's conservative budgeting practices and protecting the strong financial position the town has held for the past 3 years. The 2022 budget is balanced with a property tax rate decrease. With the approval of the police sales tax, we've created a separate fund, the police fund, to address the growing needs of our police department and to allow more transparency on how those funds are expended. With the increase in revenues forecasted for 2022, we will maintain a healthy fund balance consistent with the fund balance requirements of GFOA. The 2022 budget continues to provide funding for the town's ongoing focus on improving critical water infrastructure and road expansion and development. The 2022 budget provides funding for smaller capital projects. In addition, we will be doing a townwide assessment of our park system to enable us to plan for 2023 and beyond. 2021 was a very successful year for the town of Monument, and with your approval of the budget of 2022, 2022 can be an even greater year. As Ron stated earlier, the town of Monument employees are the best staff I've ever worked with.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to make public comment? Okay. That takes us to item 7, board authorization items. We currently have, I would say we just have one. We have a continuation of our workshop prior to the next board meeting. Is there any other board authorization items? Seeing none, that takes us to item 8, Board of Trustee comments.
I have one. I would like all staff, police, and everybody to pay attention to what I'm about to say. I was in this audience. I was at that podium. I've been out there 4 years ago. When I did that, it was a 3-3 crap show is the best thing that I could say about that. It was the most discouraging time I've seen staff ever. Okay. And police and everybody. And I was out there as a citizen going, no one's listening to me. All you're doing is attacking each other. I go, what is going on? That is what drove me to do this. I will say this, and I will say this very clearly. This coming November, there are going to be 5 seats open here. And there will be obstructionists like we had before, reactionists. Everyone that was up here would claim they were conservative or on one side, but there were obstructionists and those that supported our town and our staff. And I will be very clear about how you influence people, about who is going to run, because it will affect you dearly. I hope you're hearing me on this. It's very important, okay? Either you're proactive and intentional or you're reactionary. I want to be proactive and intentional, okay? This is the best staff and the best. I came here on purpose. I left LA on purpose. No one forced me to move here. I came here intentionally because this is a great town, okay? So what I'm going to say is, when Ben Franklin came out of the Constitutional Convention, a woman said, do we have a monarchy or do we have a republic? He said, you have a republic if you can keep it. Okay? And that there's a book written by Eric Metaxas that describes that whole thing. What we have right now, is a good thing if we can keep it. Okay? But I would implore everyone here to focus on November. Because what we have, we can keep if we can keep it. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Any other board comments?
Trustee Romanello, I'd like to mention that I concur with that. I've been on the board since 2014, and there was a period of time where we got nothing done. There was no support for the town personnel. There was no support for the management or the heads of the department, and it was just a mess. And I am so glad to end my terms on the board this next November with a really good board.
Okay. Seeing no other comments, we will move to item number 9, executive session. Trustee LaKine, will you make the motion for the executive session?
I move to go into executive session.
Second.
Yeah, please.
I further move to return to the open meeting. Oh, the whole thing?
Yes.
Pursuant to Colorado's revised statute 24-6-402 4B and E, I move to we go into executive session to discuss positions relative to and receive legal advice relating to the possible inclusion of 16240 Old Denver Road into the Tri-View Metropolitan District. I further move to return to the open meeting at the close of the executive session for the purpose of taking any formal action deemed necessary.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Erickson?
Trustee Romanello,
Yes.
Trustee Shaning,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee LaKine.
Yes.
Okay, we will move into an executive session. We will take a 5-minute recess prior to executive session. Mr. Foreman, Mr. Rivera, where would you like to hold this executive? Second floor conference room. Will 8, 9 people fit in the second floor conference room? We are now out of executive session. Trustee Romanello, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, sir. I move that because the town is able to provide comparable service to 16240 Old Denver Road within a reasonable period of time pursuant to CRS 32-1-401, I move to instruct town staff to object to the inclusion of 16240 Denver Road into the Tri-View Metropolitan District. I also authorize staff, Mr. Foreman, to be able to negotiate with Tri-View over water rights in the future.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott. Ms. Erickson, will you take roll?
Trustee Shaning,
Yes.
Trustee Romanello,
Yes.
Trustee LaKind,
Yes.
Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Trustee Stevens,
Yes.
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Elliott.
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0. Item number 11, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.